allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Dong. Here. Ms. Nunez. Ms. Quintero.
Present.
Mr. Taylor.
Present.
Ms. Hernandez.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
I move that we approve the agenda as submitted. Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Dong.
Yes.
Ms. Quintero.
Aye.
Mr. Taylor.
Aye. Do we have any governing board comments? Ms. Quintero?
I just want to say great job to all the staff that did a great job with the welcoming our new teachers, and welcome to our new teacher. Yay. Thank you.
The same. I just want to say that it went really well. I felt that the teachers were so excited about being there, and I appreciate all the work that went into making sure that they felt welcome. Thank you.
Just to reiterate, what everyone said so far, they had a new teacher orientation last week, and that was so awesome to be at. And it's crazy because a lot of my friends from high school and middle school are actually now teachers here. So big congratulations to them, and congratulations to everyone who's joined our district. And I wish you a very, very successful 22-23 school year. Mr. Costello, Superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. So I want to highlight a few, actually we got several pieces to highlight here. So the first one is the Gabe Zimmerman Public Service Award. Congratulations to Sunnyside High School alumni Patrick Robles for being selected as the 2022 Emerging Leader Award for the Gabe Zimmerman Public Service Awards. Winners are selected for their contributions to their communities and civic life, working collectively to build a stronger and brighter future for our state. So Patrick, I don't think any of us are surprised by these accomplishments at such a young age. And so, Patrick continues to inspire us and continues to have success as we all thought he would. The next one is the National High School Coaches Association First Team All-American Honors to Cristian Rivera. He's an incoming junior at Sunnyside High School and was named an NHSCA First Team Academic All-American Honors awardee. Not only is Christian dedicated to wrestling, but he's maintained a 4.0 GPA and AP and honors coursework. And he is the younger brother of Jaime Rivera, who's going to be attending West Point this fall.
Nice.
SARCEF ACES Camp for Girls. I'd like to thank SARCEF for hosting our students and showing them a variety of STEM-related career paths through a 5-day summer camp. Over 40 students engaged in innovative activities such as ways to combine both entrepreneurship and STEM. The campers explored the development of innovative product ideas, venture capital, finance management, and completed a variety of hands-on training opportunities led by experts in the STEM field. So congratulations. Air Force JROTC Distinguished Unit Award. Desert View High School's Air Force JROTC once again received the Air Force JROTC Distinguished Unit Award for this past school year. This award recognizes the personal growth and accomplishments of the cadets, contributions of the instructors as mentors, and the support of the school and local community. Units selected for this award truly represent the best of our 870 AFJROTC units worldwide. Also, congratulations to their instructors, Major McCumber and Chief Master Sergeant Frederick. New teacher orientation, as mentioned by the board here. Last week, we welcomed over 100 new teachers to the Sunnyside Unified School District for our new teacher orientation. We are excited as they begin the new school year within our district and can't wait to see how they inspire our students across all of our grade levels to become college, career, and community ready. And last but not least, our District Leadership Summit. Our district leaders and administrators are energized and ready for the new school year. After successfully gathering for our annual Leadership Summit, this year's theme was based off the movie Top Gun, and it gave our administrative team time to reflect on their own leadership style, create a compelling vision for the upcoming school year, and collaborate with others throughout the district to implement best practices for this upcoming school year at each of their sites. This concludes the superintendent report.
Thank you, Superintendent Costello. Next one is a call to the public. Seeing that we have none, we're going to go on ahead and skip past that. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move that we approve the consent agenda as submitted.
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Dong,
Yes.
Ms. Quintero,
Aye.
Mr. Taylor.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, we move on to our general functions. And 1 second to get myself. Okay, we have our fiscal year 23 annual expenditure budget. Ms. Watson, Mr. Encinas, welcome back.
Good evening, members of the governing board, Superintendent Costello. We are back in front of you tonight to do our first budget revision of the year. As you know, we did the adoption on July the 12th. And I would like to have Mr. Encinas go over what the changes are as far as what the revised budget will look like.
First of all, I'd like to, I know Ms. Walter introduced herself, or it was just her first board meeting, the governing board. In person. And Ms. Walters is going to be presenting all future business and finance items. And I'm here tonight just to assist in since what happens when we have the board approve the adopted budget, we inadvertently checked off a box which calculated the revenue control limit based on 200 instructional days. We caught that after the governing board approved the budget. That check mark of that box, the little box, resulted in an overstatement of the M&O budget by $4.8 million. By the same token, not having checked off a box, there was a new a Group B, wait for free reduced price lunch program students, which is basically our free and reduced student count. We estimated, right now we estimate 11,200. And that 11,200 kids generated 967,000 of additional budget that we didn't calculate in the original adopted budget. So what we're bringing to you tonight is the net correction, which reduces the M&O budget from 111,518,000 to 107,692,000, or a net reduction of $3.8 million. Now, that reduction does not have an adverse impact on the budget itself because we have not committed any of the additional monies we are anticipated for any additional purposes at this time. So it's fortunate that we did catch the error early enough to allow the governing board to adopt a revised budget, which will be correct and be able to proceed, allow the governing board to proceed forward with correct information. The unrestricted capital outlay budget and other budgets were not affected by the correction, so that is the only correction that's been reflected in the revision. The other information I'll bring you to the governing board tonight, and the primary reason that also we brought to you the revision so early, is that the tax rates are going to be set by the Pima County Board of Supervisors. In order for the County Board of Supervisors to be able to set an accurate tax rate, they need an accurate budget. So with the revised numbers, the Pima County Board of Supervisors is going to be adopting a budget or adopting a tax rate for Sunnyside School District that will reflect a primary tax rate of $3.47 per hundred. Last year's rate was $3.82 per hundred. The secondary tax rate, which is our bond tax rate to retire the bond and interest, last year's was $1.53. This year's 0.8382. So the total tax rate is reduced from 535 to 4.3087. So roughly, on a $150,000 home, it saves them $150 of taxes. So again, as the board is aware that we are funded on current year funding or current year enrollment. We don't know what the 100th day count is going to be at yet, so the best guess we have right now is what we had the board approve the budgets for. We don't know what our actual budget balance carry forward will be. In other words, we will know what our final numbers we spent last year. We won't know that till late September. When we find out that number, then that will require revision of what we thought it was going to be. So this will be revision number 1 of, I can guarantee you, at least revision number 2 prior to May 15th. Maybe revision number 3 that'll be prior to December, but we'll have other revisions. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. Again, my sincere appreciation to all of you for the many years I've spent here. So, other than that.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Questions, comments?
Comment before we I move to approve this revised budget. I just want to thank you, Hector, for all of your years of service and keeping us always solid when it comes to the budget here in the district. Even when the years were really difficult throughout the state as far as funding is concerned, and we had to let go of teachers through rifts, and we were just having to cut programs and things like that. You always brought us the information we needed to make sure that we had the least impact possible on our classrooms, the least impact possible on our staff. You have made our district solid. Whenever I was around other board members throughout the state and conferences, and I was telling them some of the stuff that we were doing, they were asking how we were doing it. And they asked me who the CFO was, and I would tell them your name, and they go, oh, no wonder, he's the best in the state. And I agreed with them. I feel that you are you are the best in the state in getting us through everything, and you continue always to get us through some of our toughest times when it comes to budget. We don't get very much money from the state. We don't get very much money from the federal government, but you always made sure that that money went into the right areas to keep us solid and to keep us from getting into any kind of fiscal problems. So I really appreciate that, and I want to thank you for your many, many years of service. I want to miss you as my seatmate here, always passing me a candy just when I needed it to keep us all going. But thank you so very much for everything that you've done for us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Taylor,
Can we get a motion to?
just real quick.
Yes.
I just want to say welcome. I think, so you might check the shoe sizes and make sure that those, are you going to fit them?
It's gonna be hard, but I promise that, I will do my best, to follow suit with Hector's, legacy here. I think that I've done well in my previous districts as well, and I'm proud to come to Sunnyside, finally back to Southern Arizona, where I feel right at home. Thank you.
Thank you.
She brings her own shoes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Thank you, Ms. Walters. Thank you, Mr. Encinas, for everything. Can I get a motion to
Yes.
to approve the annual expenditure budget revision number 1 as submitted?
I would like to move that we approve the fiscal year 23 annual expenditure budget revision number 1 as submitted.
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Dawn,
Yes.
Ms. Quintero,
Aye.
Mr. Taylor.
Aye. All right. We have our Arizona School Boards Association selection of the board's official representative.
I think.
No.
we
Oh,
have-
my bad.
yeah,
Oh, I was looking at the wrong one.
something updated.
Okay. Our 22-23 staffing update.
It's staffing up.
It says staffing.
It says
It says
staffing
staffing.
first.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Right? Okay.
Hello. Good evening, members of the board. Superintendent Costello. I'd like to present to you the state of our vacancies. Right now, I'm having technical difficulties having it up there, so I'll just do a narrative if you're okay with that. We started, and again, this was as of July 21st, 2022, so it's been a moving target, and we've been making some progress. So I would like to just give you what it was in July 21st and then update you where we are today. So it started out with, we had certified vacancies in classroom, there were 9. In certified non-classroom, we had 10 for a total of 19. Last year, we're at 32. So we're already a little bit ahead of the game there. Our vacancies, how they break down by school level, is elementary, there were 10. Middle school, there were 9. None at the high school. Last year, we had 14, so we're lower by 4. We had 2, so we're a little bit higher still in the middle school. And the high school, we had 7 vacancies, and this year we have 0 vacancies there. We had a breakdown by elective. In the vacancies, there are 8 of them were in elective classrooms. 9 of them were from content areas. 5 from special ed, and 2 are counselors. Now, here comes the exciting part. The vacancies, although we went from 19, now we only have 11. We have 50 substitutes in our classrooms ready to greet our kids. Right now, there are 27 in the elementary schools, 15 in the middle schools, and 8 in the high schools. I certainly want to commend our team for what they did to get us ready. We have administrators out there contacting as many people as they can that they have found through word of mouth sometimes. We also have our substitute coordinator, Angelica Nozagaray, reaching out to people. We have 50 of the 53 subs we have hired, 35 of them are certified subs, which means they already have a bachelor's or a master's degree. 18 are emergency certified, so they're students going for their teaching degrees. We have a pipeline with the U of A, the Pathways program. I don't know if you're familiar with that one, but the numbers in the cohort, we had our first cohort, we had 10 teachers. The second cohort, we had 10 teachers. Our third cohort, we have 15 teachers ready to go into classrooms. So because they start in January, we have 6 subs holding those positions as well too. So we're grateful for the partnership that we have with the U of A because that helps feed the teachers. Of the 35 teachers, we have 34 still here with us. So that has been a success. So tomorrow we're going to post the positions again out for the other subs to see if we get any bids there, and we're hopeful that we'll have bodies in the classrooms in front of our kids to greet them on the first day of school. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions? Comments?
No, thank you for all your hard work. Those are great numbers. You know, the vacancies are a lot less than they were last year, and we still have one more week, you know, to finish filling out a few more. So thank you so much for you and your staff for going out there. And also, I know that for the site administrators, they've been out there hustling also trying to get people into their classroom. So I want to thank all of you for that.
I have to certainly thank the HR team because they're a hard-working group, and it's a pleasure to work with them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I do actually have a question. So with the Pathways program, what are we doing as a district to really promote that? So that way we can expand. Is there a limit to how big the cohort can be?
No, actually there's not. The challenge sometimes is in holding the sub positions. It's a 17-month program. So the first semester, there's a pair that goes with the mentor, one of our teachers. The second semester, the pair goes out on their own, but we have to hold a spot in the third semester. So the challenge is, can we get subs to hold those spots for them? So this year, I think the group might be smaller coming in. There might only be 7 or so, but as long as we have places for them, we take them. Right. And they have been wonderful. It's just been very nice to be able to grow our own teachers to do sort of the systems and the techniques that we use in the classrooms.
Right. Okay.
I just want to publicly thank Ms. Sheppy and her team for the work they've done over the last couple of weeks. There's been a lot of overtime that they've been working, and not only has she had to hire internal staff, but as soon as, you know, they had to get them trained quickly, and there's a lot to process, right, in terms of new employees and returning employees, and they've done a pretty amazing job these last couple of weeks reducing these numbers. And I'm glad you brought up the Pathways program because, you know, we're just not looking to fill spots in our classrooms. We're looking for people that are good fits in our classrooms. And so it's a big advantage when you get to hire from within, you know, although they're classified staff and they go into this cohort for 17 months. The advantage is they know our district, they know our students, and they're just going through that training. And so, and you know, knocking those classes out to get certified. So I just wanted to point out that they've done a tremendous job because, you know, a few weeks ago, I mean, some of these vacancies were eye-opening, and that goes to the sites, as Ms. Sheppy mentioned, right? The sites have done an amazing job of making sure they're looking for strong candidates and interviewing, and that takes a lot of time, right?
Yes,
I mean,
it does.
and so they've done a tremendous job of filling those positions, and in light of, you know, the teacher shortage, right, that you hear on the news all the time, in light of, you know, trying to find these qualified individuals. And so I just want to say thank you.
You have to do a shout out to the ed careers that they have going on at the high school, the programs now too, because they're going to enter into our Pathways program and then feed it. So we're starting younger.
Cool.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. We have our COVID update. Mr. Baca.
All right. Good evening, President Taylor, members of the board, Mr. Castellum. I'm here to just give you a quick overview of our planning and readiness and preparedness for the coming school year, and to discuss, you know, some of the considerations that have been discussed among the administration, among our principals, in preparation for the beginning of the school year. So I wanted just to start by kind of looking at where we are from a community spread level. And the current level down there, Pima County, you can see it's in the medium, the yellow category. It just recently changed from the green to a yellow. And of course, we know that this is an ever-changing situation that we monitor closely. And I apologize, I needed to acknowledge someone who helped prepare some of this information here is our school nurse manager, Ms. Shara Rodden, and she's in the room here to be able to answer any questions that you may have as well, and offer her expertise. So she helped me look at this, but also this wasn't me looking at it alone. With all our other administrators, we've kind of really started to think about how are we going to prepare our communications to our schools and to our students and to our families, and how to address the reality of the COVID situation as it is today. Because as I think we're all aware that it's an ever-changing situation. What it was a year ago is different than what it is today. So that brings us to recognizing the new COVID reality and understanding that we're in a constant state of review and analysis. And where that brings us, another part of it is that we'll always approach this with the health and the safety of our students as the top priority. So whatever the situation is this week, we may have to make an adjustment next week. And we'll keep the board apprised of any changes, but we want to give you an overview kind of where we see things moving at this current stage, in this current week, in this current month. The other part of it is to just be clear that in months and years past, we received very clear direction from the state authorities, the county authorities, and we no longer have such clear direction on terms of specifically what to do in every single instance. And a lot of that has to do with the governor's signed law about not allowing mandated mask policies of those situations, but and a lot of other changes that are relevant to it. But it does give us the ability to kind of assess where we are and recognize that Sunnyside has a certain set of conditions that what we think are best for Sunnyside. We want to recommend these to the board, get your input and get your feedback about how we proceed forward, and see if you feel comfortable with the direction we're going. And that's where we're here today. So the quick overview was discussing the changes from last year is that the county nor the state no formal contact tracing is required. So formal contact tracing is not required, and the requirement of reporting positive cases has been discontinued as well. So now does that mean that we can't do some of it? Well, we are committed to continue to do an informal contact tracing process. So it's not that we're going to close our eyes, close our ears, and not when we identify positive cases, we want to support the informal notification process, but not a formal notification process where we're making all those phone calls and notifying a positive case to the state. We recognize that the pandemic is different than it was a few months ago. The current prevalent variant is more contagious, but also less severe in terms of the health implications involved. But that doesn't mean that it's not still a very important thing to keep an eye on. But that is a new reality that we're grappling with as we make these plans. So to review kind of what our overview of our mitigation efforts are, number one is maintain a very strong focus on sanitization, on good best practices for our classrooms, and really communicate both to families and to teachers and to schools that we need to maintain that level of reminders of hand washing, reminders of just the simple things of covering your mouth when you're coughing, all those other things that we're accustomed to doing, but have been forced to do so in a much more proactive manner since the pandemic began. That's an important part of the mitigation. So that's number one. Also ensuring that masks are encouraged and welcomed. However, they're not mandatory, but we want everyone to feel that wearing a mask is perfectly welcome. No one should ever feel like it's not acceptable or in any way. In fact, we should continue to make sure the masks are available to students when and where they may need one, and that families are encouraged to continue to send their students to school with masks. The at-home tests are going to be made available for our students from our school offices. Now, this is a slight shift from how we've done in the past, where school nurses were administering tests in school. What we're looking to do is encourage that families who would like a test are welcome to come and request one and receive one from our school office. And there's that at-home test kits. So we want to encourage that our parents are empowered with the ability to go get a test and get my child tested. Now, we also recognize that we're not the only source for free tests. There are free tests available that you can still order online, and those other sources that are available in the community, and we'll continue to provide resources for our families to know where to go get those tests. But one thing that we want to do is ensure that we have the capacity to provide tests to our families as needed, with a couple of conditions, and I'll speak to that in a second. Because that does bring us to the concept of pool testing. And the pool testing concept is one that's fraught with concerns, real concerns from our schools, and the impact that it has had on the loss of a variety of different resources, but most importantly, our instructional time. So we just want to have an honest dialogue about the fact that the pool testing process, while at the time of the pandemic a year ago was a very effective way of us identifying and honing in on our outbreaks, we also recognize that it's not a perfect system either. And we're weighing this against, as a parent, if I'm a parent, the pool test process gives me an option to be able to ask my student to be tested, but what are the implications of that question? Versus, if I'm a parent, I can ask to have a home test sent home to me. So if I choose the pool test route, here's the scenario. The scenario is I get tested, I'm pulled out of class, where we go through a whole series of things, and we queried some principles this week, and kind of like what was the real world implication of the pool testing. And the way it was consistently conveyed is that for that first day of testing of pool testing, you are missing several, potentially up to 3 hours of class. It was usually from the morning until about 11 a.m. is when you're being pulled and moved around and you're brought into your pool, and so up to 3 hours of lost time is there. If that pool test results in a positive, so say there's 40 students in that pool test and there's a positive in the class, now we got to do the second day of pool testing. And the second day is, quite frankly, very disruptive to the learning environment. That second day required nearly the entire school day of missing, because now you don't know who's positive or not, so you're quarantining those students in an area. You're taking all the support staff and all the other leadership from the school and having them manage that of, now we're doing our second round of testing. Now, what we're looking at this is like, well, that's a 1.5 day, potentially up to over a day and a half of lost class time for those students. Versus if we're able to provide those tests for those students, and here the other reality is that we found is that in many cases, yes, there were outbreaks, but there was 1 or 2 positive cases in that pool, but the vast majority of them were still negative. So for those 1 or 2 positive cases, they were all close contacts. You can see that there's a series of disproportionate adverse outcomes, versus if we can give those tests proactively to our families and ensure that we have an adequate supply of those. As a parent, I think our parents are going to be welcome, are going to enjoy the option to be able to ask the school to send home a test, because I suspect my student may have been a close contact or is developing symptoms. And I definitively know about my child, because in the pool test, you're just part of a pool. And so in that round 1, you're notified that one of the pool has been tested positive, and now we're going to identify who individually of that group is the individual positive case. And you've lost a day and a half of instruction just to go through that process, and that occurs on a weekly basis. So we value the pool test theory and the process. It's just we want to be upfront and direct with the board on recognizing how truly disruptive, and if we weigh it in terms of like the benefit of knowing that a large pool may be informative, but if a family member is able to proactively have a test every week for their students, we want to see how our families would prefer to have those tests at home readily available, rather than going the pool test route. So we're by no means are we saying we're not pool testing. We're still weighing that as our option, but we also want to hear a governing board prerogative on how to proceed down that road. The other important part of our mitigation effort is just the consistent family communication, and we'll provide another. We've had a comprehensive resource on our website regarding COVID. It's time for us to update that and to provide the most current up-to-date, and that's what Ms. Felix and the department is actively providing an update with the most current resources. Things like the quarantine and isolation calculator tool, the vaccine booster for ages 5 and up, and a whole other series of resources that are current and accurate for our families. And I'll show you a sneak preview of those resources in a second. And then also, other things like staff communication, like the booster eligibility. There's a tool to determine your booster eligibility, and that we'll provide as a communication tool to our staff to help in the mitigation. For staff and students, as I mentioned at the beginning, health and safety is always going to be the primary consideration when we're looking at how to address our COVID situation. But we really want to continue in this move or / return to the standard illness reporting procedure. So as a student, potentially develops symptoms, as we were before COVID, the expectation is that you keep your child home, and if in this case, get access to a test that you can get from school or get from a community resource. And if you're positive, then we follow the recommendations that are currently existing. And those recommendations are, if you test positive, you quarantine for 5 days. If your symptoms are resolving by the 5th day, then you're eligible to return. And there's some additional clarifications on that, where you're expected to wear a mask upon return for another 5 days beyond that. And communicate that to our families, and really make sure that that's a practice that we are very direct about notifying and keeping all of our community informed about what the expectations are should there be a positive test. But also that applies to any illness. We want to return to the standard way of managing illness reporting. And because COVID is of course a difficult and a pandemic that has impacted so many of our families, we're not taking it lightly, but we also know that the reality is that the new reality of the COVID pandemic is one in which we can rely on the standard procedures to mitigate it to an effective amount that doesn't cause undue disruption to the learning environment. And that's the balance. That's the difficult part of this, is knowing the disruption that these things do to learning. And I think you'll hear a little bit about that from Ms. Benton here in the following presentation. And then, we of course are encouraged to wear masks at any time, a precautionary measure for themselves or others, and then notify them about giving them resources about the current transmission levels, and all those other information resources we've referenced on our website. And then, if positive, it's simple as following those procedures there. Here's another example of the communication. This is something that Ms. Rodden has developed for our nurses, and it really starts to dive into kind of the details. Can you switch to that one? Yeah, there we go. You can just zoom in on that. And this is just a quick overview. This is not complete and final, but this gives kind of the brief overview of like how those isolation recommendations, where you're 5 days from symptoms, from being tested if asymptomatic, no symptoms at time of positive test, and symptoms develop, you restart the isolation timeline. These are the kind of the guidelines that we're preparing and we're getting ready to both give to staff and students. You can scroll down. For close contacts recommendations, testing supplies. One thing that I failed to mention earlier, Ms. Rodden was able to get an order of 10,000 test kits delivered, and I do want to emphasize that right now, as they stand, they're provided at no cost. So we have approximately between 12 and 13,000 test kits available at this moment. So as we continue to monitor the usage and the expectations, so if we take the approach of ensuring and communicating with all staff that any family member is eligible to receive free tests from the school office at a metered pace. You're not like come in and get 2 or 3 every single day. We're probably going to allocate once a week, where you can make sure that you ensure you always can provide a test once a week. Get those tests. Our thought right now at this point is that as a parent, that's going to give parents more actionable information than participating in a pool testing, where potentially 1 or 2 days of class time is going to be lost, and you still don't know if your student is positive, and in many cases they still come out negative, and you're still tested negative. You're kind of guilty by association through those 2 days, and that's the difficult part of that, because those are 2 days of lost instruction that we're trying to minimize. We have 13,000 test kits on hand, and we're going to continue to replenish that supply with Ms. Rodden overseeing the supply and ensure that we're able to maintain that. Now, I want to also caution that if we feel like that's not sustainable, then we have to start to really consider, is the pool testing thing the direction we need to route? And we need to make those decisions on a week-to-week basis and keep closely monitor that. We can switch back to the other slide, please. And that's what I'm referring to, is being, continuously responsive to the changes in the pandemic and monitoring this closely. Ms. Rodden and I will continue to participate in the weekly phone calls. She participated in last Thursdays, and that's, as I said at the beginning, we're not getting a lot of clear direction from the Pima County Health Department, and that's understandable. That's just the nature of how things have changed. But we'll stay informed through those channels, and then bring to the board any updates that may be necessary for you to take action on. And then that brings us to, this is where we're at. We're trying to manage this COVID crisis, not only from the health perspective, but also from the learning impact perspective. And as I mentioned, Ms. Benton will speak a little bit to that. At this point, that's a quick overview of kind of the communication plans we're putting, the mitigation efforts we're putting together, the information that's being developed, and ask for any thoughts or any input that you'd like to offer at this time, and certainly be open to your suggestions and, of course, your direction.
Are you considering doing vaccination events so that people can get vaccinated?
Yeah, Ms. Rodden brought up that those may still be made available, and we're open to certainly helping host those, but also recognizing that there's a lot of vaccines available in the community, and so one important part of that resources that we're putting together is direct information about how families can get vaccinated. One of those tools was, give pointers to parents that children 5 and up are now eligible to be vaccinated, and they can go and where they can go to get those. But if it helps our community, we're certainly open to continuing to host those. We're going to again take those as requested and as we feel that it fits within our communication to our community.
Yeah, I think it would be helpful to have them in the neighborhoods and stuff where it's more readily available for our community. Also, if I don't want to take away learning time, so if you kept pool testing optional, I'm okay with that. Mm-hmm. But I would really like to make sure that learning time is in the classroom. Mm-hmm. It's important. And I just, if you're sick, stay home. It's just, fever, stay home.
Yep.
Thank you.
It's about that, return to that, personal responsibility about it, and emphasizing that as a part of the commitment we all have as a social commitment to each other. Right. It's a social responsibility aspect of that, yeah.
Ms. Dawn, any comments, questions?
Yes. I'm also understanding of the class time, the instructional time that the pooling, has interrupted. However, last year we were pretty much told that it was very effective in helping to stop the spread of the virus amongst the individual classrooms and students. And it's because of that that I want you to make sure you continue looking at that. Mm-hmm. It's always difficult to bring back a program than to maybe scale it down. Mm-hmm. And if you scale it down sometimes, and then things change, as things are always changing, it's a little bit easier to make it larger again. Yeah. Whereas if you take it out completely, sometimes it's a little bit more difficult to restart. So that's just something that to think about as you're thinking about which way to go. I am very happy to hear about the individual tests. However, I know that many people just don't do it. They feel sick, so they're just, you got a cold, stay home for a couple of days, kind of a thing. But by education, I think that will improve in getting our families to take it more, the home test more seriously and doing them more at home. As far as the communication is concerned, making sure that everybody knows about vaccinations and boosters. You keep mentioning 5-year-olds, but let's not forget Ocotillo.
Yes.
and making sure that our parents there understand the new vaccination guidelines for younger children,
Yeah.
and that they have access to that information also, so that we make sure that they get themselves vaccinated and tested when they feel that the child might, have the COVID. It's difficult to test them at that age because putting a swab in a 2-year-old nose is a really hard situation. But at least if they have the information and the test kits also available for themselves,
Yes.
and the knowledge that they can get themselves vaccinated. And then making sure at all the school sites, not just Socotillo, but all the different school sites, I think we need to continue to do what we can as a district to let people know that there's contact being made, that somebody in that classroom has COVID. Please keep an eye on your child and don't let that child go do things. I'm speaking now from experience. A week ago, I guess somebody had it in one of the preschools, and my granddaughter caught it and then didn't know that she had in contact with this person. And this weekend did a lot of stuff with my other grandchildren as well as other people. And the contact might not have been made if she had been they had been told that there was somebody else in the classroom that got ill. So the sooner we get that message out, it's not always going to be perfect, because some kids, they just think it's a cold. That's what this child probably had thought, and that's what we thought that my granddaughter just had, was just some sniffles, the regular sniffles. But if you know that there's contact made, then you start to think, wait a minute, are those sniffles or not? And I think in every classroom, elementary, middle, and high school, if you know that there's a possibility of contact and you start to get the sniffles, then you pay more attention. You pay more attention before the spread starts.
Yeah. And that helps in the mitigation. Just that information that you send out helps in the mitigation for sure. So
exactly. So we continue that. I think we were doing a good job through not just the pooling, but just letting people know. I think we did a great job during the worst of the pandemic. I think this district overall did a fantastic job during the pandemic, and the nursing staff, everybody did an incredible job. And we kept our numbers down compared to the rest of the county's numbers and the rest of this community numbers. The numbers in our schools were not as high as some of those numbers, and I know it's because of everything that you guys all did as far as the sanitation, sanitizing everything, all the different things that you put into place, and working with the county at the time, but also the different things that you guys did. We did an incredible job, and so, my hopes are that we continue to do that this year, and that, of course, my hopes are that we continue to have lower numbers and we don't go into the red, and we go back to where we don't have that much, cases throughout the county and throughout the state. So thank you for everything that you did last year, and you guys continue to do. I really appreciate that, and I know our community really appreciates it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dung. Yeah, I just want to thank you guys for, developing and then adjusting, what has so far been a very robust and solid mitigation plan for our district. It wasn't easy. We've had to, take a step back when we thought, maybe we need to take a step back and look at this differently, so it's been a long process. So, thank you guys so much for making sure that we're in good hands, and I think going forward we will be. I do have a question for you, though. It's not specifically related to COVID. We're seeing another infectious disease popping up, right? And similar to COVID, this one is also, we've learned, is not discriminatory. are we being advised in any way from the health department, CDC, on how we in our schools can kind of mitigate the spread of that as well? Any sort of communication?
There is communication about that. In fact, the call on Thursday had a specific section just to talk about the monkeypox outbreak. Related to what is actionable from that information, I don't have anything reported. Ms. Brodin, I don't know if you have anything to report on any direction that they've given on the monkeypox outbreak at this point.
Messaging basically was the risk it's not is direct contact. So because of that, it's within just good informational at this point.
And that's the importance that we maintain our participation in those information, because that's where we're going to get that information about really where to go forward if it does turn into something we need to take action on. Right. And so we will ensure to keep up to date on that as that continues to develop. Okay,
awesome. Thank you so much.
I just wanted to add a couple things. You know, as we talked about our experiences with pool testing this past year, I think one of the frustrations was turnaround time. So day one, you're doing pool testing, kids are swabbing, they're throwing them into a vial, for lack of a better word, and then those get sent to the lab. And many times the lab was delayed in responding. At times we'd get the response first thing in the morning of whether we had positive hits or not, because that always gave us direction on what we needed to do next, right? And so schools would call us, and we'd get the phone calls along with Ms. Rodin here, and saying, we haven't gotten our results. And it'd be midday, we haven't gotten our results. It'd be the end of the day, we haven't gotten our results. So we may have individuals on campus positive, not knowing, right? Because we never got that information. So that happened quite a bit more towards the middle and end of the year. And I don't know how many schools or, and how many other districts are doing the pool testing, but it just felt like they couldn't handle the volume. And so, the upside of doing, providing home test kits is the immediate result, right? Mm. And so that's, just wanted to weigh the pros and cons. I mean, of course, our priority is to make sure there's options. Our priority is to make sure to identify and give individuals test kits, when needed. And so I just wanted to share that because there was a lot of frustration with that last year in terms of the pool. A lot of times also when individuals were retested on day 2, a lot of them were coming back negative, and sometimes left to question like, okay, so was that a false positive? And we know there was a little bit of that as well, right? And I think that's where frustrations set in, because you've taken hours on day 1 to pool test, and a couple more hours in day 2 to retest, and then negative results. And of course, we'd rather be safe than sorry, right? And so it was good that we were getting results. In terms of what Mr. Bach, I mean, this individual, and Ms. Dong hit on this, the individual responsibility is critical as well, right? In terms of people making good choices, when they should stay home, when they should probably mask up, and be real clear, it's not mandatory. We just encourage it if you're coming off a sickness, if your symptoms are resolving, if you're coming off a positive, And so, and I think it's a great idea. Last year we hosted many events in terms of vaccination events, and the county was very helpful in identifying those areas that are most in need. So we did, depending on where those neighborhoods were, we lend our facilities to them and made sure that anytime they offered us that opportunity, we took advantage of it. And we want to continue to do that. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gaston. Thank you, Mr. Baca.
Thank you.
Next, we have our Move On When Reading update. Ms. Benton.
Good evening, Mr. Taylor, Governing Board, Superintendent Costello. Carmen Castro will be joining me. I can't touch that. will be joining me up here to give you an update. In January, we talked a little bit about, when we did performance data, we talked a little bit about the statute and the legislation and what the move on when reading legislation requires of us to do. And I'm going to ask Ms. Castro to share a little bit about the number of students, some of the data of the students who are required to go to summer school, and then probably the bigger, more important question of what's next? What are we doing in that space? And just to tag on to what Mr. Baca was saying, the fallout, if you will, from the ups and downs of student attendance and being here and not being there and teachers being out and all of the things, we're seeing the impacts definitely. We see them in education. We've seen them for the past couple of years, and we're really not in the place of continuing to slow down, but really leaning in. And how do we fill those gaps moving forward? The interesting piece that's occurring are with the really young students that are coming in. Students who were toddlers during these years and are now, entering into kindergarten. And what does that mean for literacy skills and math skills? And our students, these third graders who were first graders, in the middle of learning how to read when all of this came about. So just want to, as Ms. Castro goes through this, just let you know that in addition to thinking about all the things that are out there, it's really taking the time to identify what is this new reality of struggle that students have and really trying to get underneath it and identify what that is. I think it's going to require some things that are not as conventional as we usually think about to help close these gaps. So just really thinking about how do we mitigate the effects for these kids coming in. So I'll let Ms. Castro talk a little bit through, and we'll have any questions at the end. Move me forward.
Good evening, Mr. Taylor, governing board members, Superintendent Costello. I just wanted, we don't have audience today. I know the rest of them. I just wanted to come back and give you some updates to move on when reading, because I did come last spring and share some information about retention and wanted to make sure that you were all aware of increases in retention based on new policy. So the major policy has not changed, and I just put that for your information. The one new item is that we do have to have one kinder through third grade teacher at each elementary site trained in dyslexia. So we will begin that training this year. I've also included Dr. Williams in that, so we will also train our LD resource teachers in that same professional learning. So the exemptions have not changed, so just for your information. The one big change was that students who fell in that threshold of being eligible for retention, to be able to move on to fourth grade, they either had to meet one of the previous exemptions that was on the screen, or they have to demonstrate sufficient progress. That was the new, right? And so during that time of summer school, our students were reassessed with the same diagnostic that we used throughout the school year. And if students were able to demonstrate an 11-point growth during that time, we were able to move them on to fourth grade. So of our students, let me just show you our numbers. We had 71 students originally eligible for retention based on our state assessment. We then went through that data, determined who was exempt either because of special education requirements or ELL students. So after that, we had 47 students who were eligible for retention. They were all invited to our summer school program that ran from May 31st through June 17th. And after that session, we did retain 13 students. So 13 of our students will be repeating third grade. One thing that we also went through their data is if students are proficient or on grade level for math, they will be taking fourth grade math. We're not going to hold them back because of this reading in math. So any student that is on grade level for math will move on in that level. But the main discussion is around what now, right? So our reality is that we do have students who are struggling, and not just the students that were eligible for retention. And so we do have a very robust plan about what our next steps are. So first, what we did for the summer was develop a protocol on how to evaluate multiple data points to create groups for students so that they are receiving the appropriate instruction for where they are in reading. So we had the opportunity during summer school to practice that with this group of 47 students. And we had 2 groups that we were focused on their language needs because they were still English learners who also needed to develop English language along with their reading skills. And then we had the other 2 groups who are mainstream English students, but also needed additional support. So with that, we have already scheduled a meeting with our principals on August 11th so that we can go through this process with them so that they're able to replicate looking at student data to create their groups on what are their next steps for classroom instruction. We will develop student action plans for any student that is reading below grade level in grades K-5, not just our K-3 students. And parents will be made aware of that plan at the first parent-teacher conference, because that's when you have the ability to talk to parents face-to-face about what are we doing at school for students and what are supports that parents can offer at home. In addition, we have several professional development opportunities for our teachers that include how to read the data. So we give these assessments, but then what do we do with that? So working in collaboration with Dr. Williams, we have already scheduled 2 professional developments with our screener company who provides that data that we report to the state 3 times a year. So we'll be having training for reporting and progress monitoring so that we're not just waiting for our 3 benchmark dates to find out how our students are doing, but we are progress monitoring them throughout the school year in between those benchmark dates. We also have a new K-5 literacy endorsement that is coming through. So that has been approved by our state that every K-5 teacher will have to have a literacy endorsement. What that means is any new teacher coming in by 2025, universities have to provide that instruction for them. So they will come to us already with that literacy endorsement. For our continuing teachers by 2028, they have to receive that literacy endorsement. This training that we're offering, Keys to Literacy, is one of those that will be fulfilling a portion of that endorsement. So we're starting that with the training for the dyslexia training designee and our LD resource teachers. Those are the first teachers that will go through that. So those are our professional development pieces. Next is our literacy plan. So for part of Move On When Reading, we have to develop a literacy plan. So the training that we do on August 11th will be a part of that literacy plan that we have to turn into the state. So we will have that meeting with the teachers for them to have a part of what is this plan. The professional development will be these pieces that I've discussed with you and that sites will be able to include in their literacy plan. I'm going to stop there and see if you have any questions before I move forward.
You have any questions?
I'm just really glad that we're going to have some of the training here for the endorsements. I know that when we had the SEI, it was really hard at the beginning for people to leave and go get classes at other places, universities. And when we started having it here, it I think became a lot easier and better because the cohorts here were all talking the same language, the Sunnyside language, along with the endorsement issues. So I'm really glad that we're going to be able to have that the beginning, and hopefully we'll have all of it so that they can get their full endorsement.
So actually I spoke to ADE today, our connection with ADE, and discussed how do we set up our own in-house training for the literacy endorsement, because we do have 2 staff members that have a course approved. And we're able to offer the SEI endorsement course to all of our teachers free of cost, right? It is time for them that they have to dedicate to attend those courses, but it's free of charge. So we'd like to create the same opportunity for this literacy endorsement. So I found out what steps we have to take as a district so that we're able to offer that coursework. A part of it, there are online courses that our schools will be able to take advantage of through ADE that are free of cost, that we will then share that information with our sites so they can start with that with their individual schools, but also creating a plan for our district so that if you don't have your endorsement, how will we support teachers without them having to incur an additional cost for that, and have teachers prepared by 2028 to have that endorsement. So we do have a plan in place to create a similar structure like our SEI course.
Thank you.
Ms. Quintero.
No, thank you for, this is great.
The one thing that I truly wanted to highlight was the collaboration that we are creating around our students in K-3. So I have the opportunity to oversee both our ELA department as well as our language acquisition department. So there's already a tight connection there, right, because I'm overseeing both. But I have been working very closely with Dr. Williams in really trying to understand how do we identify students earlier, how do we provide interventions at an earlier rate, not saying that I want to identify additional students in special education, but I want to strengthen on how do we identify students earlier that are struggling with reading. And that collaboration with Dr. Williams and I, we're able to tackle our special education population, our English learner population, and then just our mainstream striving readers. So that truly is a piece that I think will strengthen our support for K-3 reading as we transition to, as we're talking about students who have missed portions of their instruction, and how can we mitigate that through professional development for our teachers in multiple opportunities. And then just any questions that you guys may have, because that's pretty much what I had to share with you tonight.
Any questions?
Yes, go ahead.
So the parents that had to retain their children, how are they feeling? Are they supporting you all?
So there were some that were upset, right? That they felt like if their students attended summer school that they would automatically be able to move on to fourth grade. And I know Ms. Gallegos' office fielded some of those calls because we did try to notify families as soon as possible. So we had the assessment the day before the end of our summer school so that students went home with a letter saying whether they were being moved on to fourth grade or if they were going to be retained. And we provided information and contact. So many of those calls did go to Ms. Gallegos' office, and we were able to have one-on-one conversations with parents. So that, yes, there were some that were obviously upset, but we're trying to help them understand how we will support them and that they do actually have an opportunity to move on to fourth grade mid-year. So if their FastBridge data, their screener data in December indicates that they're in a position to move on to fourth grade, we can do mid-year promotions. And we did let the parents know about that. But the part that I really wanted to focus on is that the students that were exempt are moving on to fourth grade, but that doesn't mean that we don't still need to support those fourth graders even though they were promoted, right? We really have to focus on what are we doing for students who are minimally proficient on our state assessment and really decrease the number of third graders. This is a K-3 program, and so how are we having earlier interventions for our kindergarten students, for our first grade students, so that we're not in third grade making it feel like it's that third grade teacher's sole responsibility of promotion to fourth grade. It really is those 4 years of instruction.
Do you think those kids, if they go to mid-year, would be falling behind again, feeling like they're never going to catch up?
I think that we're going to have to look at multiple data for them, not only their reading skills, but their writing skills, their math skills. So we'll have to look at multiple data points before we move them on to fourth grade.
Any other
Thank you.
questions? Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, thank
for putting
you.
this together. Okay. And now we have our ASBA selection of the board's official representative to the delegate assembly.
Yes, I'm glad that we have this on the agenda. It's important that we make sure that we have members from our school district as part of the delegate assembly so that we can have the voice of this district along with the voice of all the other districts in the state. So at this point in time, I would like to nominate Matthew Taylor as the board's official representative to the delegate assembly.
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Dong,
Yes.
Ms. Quintero,
Aye.
Mr. Taylor.
Aye.
You have to vote on yourself. We have
Okay.
quorum. You have to vote on yourself.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah, I was like, okay. Felt kind of weird, but
Yeah.
all right. And then we have our alternate.
I'd like to
Great.
move that we nominate Consuelo Hernandez as the board's official alternate representative to the delegate assembly.
I'll second that.
Roll call.
Ms. Dong,
Yes.
Ms. Quintero,
Aye.
Mr. Taylor.
Aye.
See what happens when you're not here?
Alrighty. Do we have any suggestions for future agenda items?
Not at this time.
Okay. And given that we've no unfinished business, can I get a motion to adjourn?
I'd like to move that we adjourn.
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Dong,
Yes.
Ms. Quintero,
Aye.
Mr. Taylor.
Aye. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Have a good night, everyone.
How are you feeling?
Yeah.
Good.